It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our VIP guest, Gordon McInally, who is our Rotary International President nominee for the year 2023-2024. I had the privilege of connecting with Gordon all through COVID with the CALSO conversations, which Gordon ran very successfully and had amazing speakers and amazing topics. But Gordon has been a Rotarian since 1984. He's held various positions in Rotary. He's also been the president and vice president of Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland. From a professional point of view, Gordon is a graduate of dental surgery at the University of Dundee, and he owned and operated his own dental practice in Edinburgh. He was the chair of the East Scotland branch of the British Periodontic Society and has held various academic positions. As mentioned, he's been in Rotary since 1984. He's currently an advisor to the 2022 Euston Convention Committee and the chair of the Operations Review Committee. So I think, Gordon, if there were any questions, I think one of the burning questions would be, is there a possibility that we're going to have a virtual convention again, or are we going to have bums on seats, as our past district governor Shirley would like to say? I'm not going to steal all your thunder, and I think the reason we invited you this evening is we want to get to know the man behind the position and not necessarily the position. So over to you, Gordon.
Well, thank you very much, Grace, and thank you everybody for allowing me to jump on this meeting this evening and spend some time with you. It's a great pleasure and it's a great privilege. I have to say there is still a certain surreal quality about being introduced as the Rotary International President nominee. I still have to pinch myself even 4 months into the job. I don't know how many of you remember the actor Robbie Coltrane, who might be better known to you as Hagrid from the Harry Potter movies, but about 30 years ago, Robbie Coltrane was in a movie. And he was a small village priest in the north of Italy. In fact, if you know Robbie Coltrane, he wasn't a small priest, he was a priest in a small village. And by some slip of a pen, this priest in a small village in the north of Italy was made Pope at a papal conclave in Rome. And I still wonder if perhaps last August there was a slip of a pen that took place that resulted in my being made president nominee of Rotary International. In the end, Robbie Coltrane made rather a good job of being Pope, so there was a good ending to his story. And I just hope there's an equally good ending to my story in June of 2024. As I say, it's a great privilege to be with you this evening, all the more so because in her briefing notes, Grace made plain, exactly as she made plain in the introduction there just now, that she was not looking for an address about the presidential vision or the future direction of Rotary, but she was looking for 5 points. 5 points about my country, 5 points about my Rotary Club, and 5 points about myself. And all within the space of 15 minutes. So I guess we ought to start the clock, and I'm going to do something I don't normally do when I'm presenting at the moment, and that is attempt to share my screen, because I'm a great believer in the fact that one picture can say 1,000 words. So if you can bear with me. And I can sincerely hope everybody can see that rather nice picture. And so I'm going to start with some facts about Scotland, most of which you will probably know, some of which you might not know so well. And of course, this is a view of St Andrews. St Andrews, the home of golf, as Scotland is known, where golf has been played for many hundreds of years, and the venue for many British Opens in the past. St Andrews only something like 11 miles from my alma mater of the University of Dundee, And in the days when I had the opportunity to play some golf, yes, I have played the old course, and no, I have never come anywhere close to the par of 72. Fact number 2 about Scotland. Well, if it's the home of golf, it's also the land where whisky was perfected. And here we have the Glenmorangie distillery in Tain in the north of Scotland. I have to say a special affinity with this distillery in that my late father was a director of the company for many years. And I grew up not drinking my mother's milk, but drinking Glenmorangie whisky. Well, not really, but it's certainly part of our family's heritage. And on the right there, you can see the stills. So that's fact number 2 about Scotland that you probably knew anyway. What you might not know quite so much about, and I'm including this in fact number 2 because it's still alcohol based, is that Scotland has also become a great place for gin. Great many distilleries springing up over the last few years all around the country producing gin, many of them doing so as a precursor to whisky. They're not allowed to sell whisky until it's matured for 3 years. So the business model is that you make gin, which can be made today and sold tomorrow, and the whisky comes later. So in addition to our great whisky heritage, Scotland is now developing a gin heritage, and we have a collection of gin. Heather and I enjoy buying gin wherever we go in the world. Rather like when we were young, we used to get a badge to stick on our rucksacks or our anoraks. Now we bring back a bottle of gin from our travels. We brought back a bottle from Inverroche in the south of South Africa. I'm seeing Nick Wood. Nick Wood is nodding his head, so he clearly knows that distillery, and that's in our collection here at home. Fact number 3 is our energy, and everybody knows that for many, many years, Scotland was an oil producer, and North Sea oil was very much part of the Scottish and indeed the UK economy. We are now diversifying, and as North Sea oil begins to, if not run out, become ever more difficult to extract, we are now diversifying into renewables, and Scotland is a leading centre of wind and wave generated power. And in fact, Scotland as a country is now producing sufficient energy through wind and wave to completely meet its energy requirements, its electricity requirements in any given year. Textiles. Well, again, textiles is something that Scotland has been very well known for down the years, and it is a centre of excellence for both textiles and design. And in actual fact, what I can share with you is that the presidential tie and scarf for 2023-24 is being designed by the Heriot Watt School of Textile and Design, which is something like 20 minutes from my home. And the master's students there, as we speak, are taking part in a competition to design that item, and they will be presented at the International Assembly a year from now. I can't tell you what it's going to look like because I don't know, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because it will not be released until this time next year. So there's 5 points about Scotland that may be known to you already, may be of some interest to you. Moving on to my Rotary Club. Well, my Rotary Club is the Rotary Club of South Queensferry. The Rotary Club of South Queensferry was chartered in 1977. I joined in 1984. And the Rotary Club of South Queensferry, fact number 2, meets in the Hawes Inn on the banks of the River Forth, below the Forth Rail Bridge, of which I will say more later. The Hawes Inn, for the literary aficionados among you, but the Hawes Inn featured very prominently in Robert Louis Stevenson's Kidnapped. And you may remember the story of Alan Brett from Kidnapped. And there is a room in the Hawes Inn dedicated to Robert Louis Stevenson with all sorts of memorabilia. So that's where our club meet when it's not meeting over Zoom, I have to say. And there are three of the iconic landmarks, probably the three iconic landmarks of South Queensferry: the Forth Bridge, the rail bridge, the original Forth Road Bridge, which was built and opened in 1964, and on the right there, the new Queensferry crossing, the latest road bridge, which was opened in 2017. The Forth Bridge is very much part of the Rotary Club of South Queensferry's heritage, in that on an annual basis, again until COVID got in the way, on an annual basis we hold a charity abseil from this bridge. And this slide, you can see the people dropping from the bridge. You can see the person looking rather scared here dropping from the bridge is in fact myself. And over 10 years, the Rotary Club has raised over £1 million by holding this annual abseil event, and basically by making the very best use of a local facility. The club also takes great delight every Christmas in sending Santa Claus out, as many Rotary clubs do, to greet the children of the town and the children of the surrounding areas. And over the years, that has been an extremely popular event, and one that the local townspeople are expecting and ready to receive. One thing I thought I might share with you was the fact that during lockdown, during the COVID pandemic, the club has in many ways rediscovered its roots of service, in that because we were unable to do much in the way of fundraising, we have been out working in the community. We have refurbished the local charity bookshop. We have refurbished the garden at a local daycare facility for senior citizens. And although I don't have a photograph of it, we've refurbished a children's play area in the centre of town. And the interesting thing is that has really raised the visibility of the Rotary Club by doing that, and in fact has brought 4 new members in the space of the last 12 months, which for a club of 39, 40 people is a significant rise in our membership, simply because we had greater visibility. And that's perhaps a lesson that we will have learned. Moving on from the Rotary Club, I hope I've given 5 facts, I think maybe 5 at least. I'm now going to move on to 5 facts about myself. And the first of those is that I am a family man. Here we have my 2 granddaughters, Ivy Grace, aged 4, and Florence May, aged 1. And I don't mind telling you that these children are the apples of both Heather and my eyes. We love them dearly. And one of the great sacrifices we're making is that we will be seeing less of them in the last 2 years than we might have done had I not taken the position of President of Rotary International. But as somebody who is passionate about making the world a better place, and passionate about making it a better place for people like these 2 young ladies you can see on this screen, it's a sacrifice that I'm prepared to make, that we're prepared to make, and that the family are prepared to let us make. So these are our grandchildren. We are also very proud of our 2 daughters, Sarah and Rebecca. And in addition to that, Greg, our son-in-law, who's married to Sarah, and the father of these 2 children. That's fact number 1 about Gordon McInally. Fact number 2 is I enjoy cooking, and nothing more so than making my annual batch of marmalade. And every January I set aside a day to make marmalade. We brand it as Rosebank Marmalade because that's the name of our house. And I did it on the 5th of January, I think it was, this year. It's now more than 3 years since we bought a jar of marmalade in a store, and we are self-sufficient in marmalade. And 2 years ago, I even won an award for it. So that's a fact that probably doesn't come out in my CV. My guilty pleasure is my love of wine, both from a collecting point of view and also from a drinking point of view. And again, speaking in a place like South Africa, I have many happy memories of time spent along the garden route, visiting vineyards in Stellenbosch and in Franschhoek, particular memories of, and I have some of, the Grand Provence from Franschhoek, and I enjoy a good bottle of wine. More recently, and this does appear on my CV, but usually when I'm introduced as somebody who enjoys traditional stick making, people's eyes go blank because not everybody knows what that refers to. But I've taken up the ancient art of stick making since we moved out of Edinburgh about 4 years ago down to the Scottish borders, which is very much a sheep farming area originally. And there was a great heritage and a great tradition in this part of the world for making sticks, essentially shepherd's crooks. And as somebody who spent a lifetime working with his hands as a dentist and carving crowns and fillings and everything else, I thought it would be good to take up this art of stick dressing, as it's known in this part of the world. And so one starts with, on the left here, a sheep's horn. It is then pressed using all sorts of hydraulic devices into the shape you can see on the right in a technique known as bulking. We then need a stick, obviously, which on the left is the bare stick, and then on the right we carve a peg into the stick so that we can attach the horn to the stick. And then we go to work on that horn to make it look slightly more attractive than it looks at present. And if you're successful, you can produce something that looks like that. And if you work even harder, you can produce something that looks like that. That's got a pheasant carved within the body of the horn on the end of that stick. And that's just a selection of the two I've shown you, plus another couple that I've got lying around at the moment. The one on the extreme right, a thumbstick made from a piece of antler, and the one there in to the second from the left is just carved from a piece of wood. My final fact I would like to share with you is the final of my hobbies. This is an old hobby in that I have for many years been a keen photographer, and about 4 years ago was about to upgrade my camera equipment when somebody said, you don't want to get a new camera, you want to get yourself a drone. So 4 years ago I invested in a drone and started doing some drone photography, and I thought I would just share this. It runs for about 1 minute. Thought I would share this video, this drone footage that I took very close to where we live. This is the ruins of Cessford Castle in the Scottish borders, probably about 5 miles from our home. And in the course of the video, you will see a little of the Scottish border countryside. And I shot this last summer sometime. So there we are. Some facts, hopefully within the 15 minutes I was allocated, hopefully of some interest to you. And all I can do is thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to talk about something different this evening, talk about something perhaps non-Rotary. If there's one person here who is pleased that that was the case. It's past District Governor Tom Gump who has just joined us, because Tom and I are old friends who have never met yet, but we are old friends because we have shared so many Zooms together over the last 3 or 4 months that we just about know what each other's going to say when we address any sort of meeting. So I hope you found that interesting. I enjoyed putting it all together, and I'm very happy to take questions about what you've heard or indeed about anything else. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for that, Gordon. It was interesting, totally. I mean, who would have thought that the president nominee of Rotary International has won awards for making marmalade? Seriously. So, of course, I'm sure you've got many questions as well from our attendees. If you have a question, please do drop it in the chat box and we will identify the questions for them to be addressed. Please also don't forget to note your contact details. In fact, for all attendees, if you have not done so, please let us know who you are and behind your names, your club name or country, because this will also make it easier for us to allocate everybody into breakout rooms for our networking session later on. So let me see for a moment if anybody has dropped any message. Okay, so there hasn't been any question yet. Or do we have any questions?
We've got Angela and Leon that are profusely waving their hands.
Oh, we asked you to drop in the chat box. So if you're so eager to really be heard, you can do that.
You're so eager, we can't type.
Okay, I'm sure.
I just wanted to know that at the next Rotary International Conference, whether you're going to use the drone to give those that can't attend a more feeling of being there. You know, if you sort of drone between the crowds and the audience and so on, I think that'll be a good thing to add to the next conference.
Well, you know, it's really interesting you should say that and mention that, Leon, because one of the things I've done over the years for Rotary was I chaired the Toronto Convention. I don't know if any of you, I think maybe some of you were in Toronto in Canada in 2018, I think it was. And when we were planning that, I had only about a year before got my drone, and I was, you know, I was, if I'm nerdy about it now, I was even more nerdy about it then. And I made the suggestion that it would be a rather nice idea if we could fly the flags of the world in underneath drones through the crowd. And I must confess that the international staff from Evanston at that point wondered who on earth that they were dealing with, and they were panicking about the insurance implications if one of these drones was to fall out of the air and down onto one of the people below and all these sort of things. But you never know. You just never know what we might be able to do. But if I take this opportunity just to address the question that was asked earlier about the likelihood or otherwise of the Houston Convention going ahead on an in-person basis or a virtual basis. The board of directors had a meeting only last Friday where they have totally affirmed that it will be a face-to-face convention. All appropriate protocols are going to be put in place to ensure the health of the people who are going to be there. And indeed, I think even this afternoon, President Shaker was sending out an email to all the Rotarians of the world to draw their attention to this. So I won't steal his thunder by telling you anymore, but there is an absolute determination that it is time we got back together again face to face. It's wonderful seeing people in a 3-inch by 2-inch box on a computer screen, but I just cannot wait to see people in 3 dimensions again, and to be able to hug people, to be able to shake people's hand, to be able to fist bump with people, to be able to do whatever. And I think it's time that we started to take steps back to that sort of thing, not ignoring the great lessons we've learned and the great opportunities we've had with Zoom. And we need to make sure that we use that going forward as well. But you can be assured that as things stand today and as we're looking at the modeling going forward and listening to the scientists, we will be together in Houston. And I, for one, look forward to that.
So, by the way, Gordon, apparently you have the best Canadian jacket ever, but we're not even going to touch on that yet because there's some question which I think is really asking for all of us, and I don't know if you're going to charge us for this. Nick from Rotary Club of Johannesburg would like to know, will you share your marmalade recipe?
I would be very happy to share my marmalade recipe with anyone who's prepared to make a small donation to the Rotary Foundation.
Well, that's a good trade. It's a good trade. And I'm sure I wouldn't mind, you know, I want that recipe. You've won awards, so it's pretty good, I'm pretty sure. I haven't tasted it, but if you've won awards, I'm convinced.
Well, I will take an executive decision and I will send the recipe to Grace, and Grace can distribute it as she sees fit.
Grace,
how about that?
Say yes. But I'm just thinking, because just 2 more minutes left, and I'm not sure if we're going to have a time to address anything else that's in our chat box for now, just so to make sure that we stick to our time limits. But now all the questions or anything else that you would like to address to our President nominee of Rotary International, I have to say that again and again, Gordon, so that after this meeting, I've said it so many times, you won't need to pinch yourself anymore. So any other questions that we haven't addressed or you would like to address, we can always email the answers. So just drop us your contact details. Thank you very much, Gordon. Grace, over to you.
Thank you, Tempe. I see Angela did have her hand up again. If it's a quick one, Angela.
It was just really to ask also about the marmalade. I was going to say, if it's award winning, is it possible to buy some? I wasn't planning on making some using the recipe. I was going to go the easy route and just buy it. My mom is Scottish and she's the only person I know who eats marmalade, but certainly I would love to send her a jar.
Angela, let's discuss that. Is she's in Scotland?
No, she's in Canada.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
right.
no, she left Scotland a long time ago, but
Okay.
but yeah, marmalade she still eats.
Okay, I'm not terribly sure if I could send a jar to Canada, but yeah, we'll work on that, huh?
Well, she's got a friend in London. Maybe you could send it to her, and then we can make a plan to get it to her somehow.
Okay, I'm going to
sorry, Grace.
Yes.
Hello, Grace. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My
Yes,
question is in the chat box. Any chance of answering that?
Your questions in the chat box. I'm just trying to see if I can find it.
Hello, everybody from Hungary.
Hello, Beatrix. How
Hello.
are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm glad to hear you.
Margaret, what was your question?
Excuse me?
I'm speaking to Margaret.
Yes.
Margaret James Cooper, what was your question?
My question is there. Shall I ask him directly then?
Yes, please, because I can't
All
find
right.
it.
Well, what was an impressive non-Rotary activities? The question is, how will you find time for Rotary activities when you are president?
It's all a question of balance, Margaret. And I have to say that my extra mural activities are probably being reduced greatly at the moment, and I'm not complaining about that. Because
extremely impressive.
In addition to the hobbies I've told you, Rotary is also it's more than a hobby. It's a way of life, as we all know. And,
yeah.
So it is a question of getting the balance right.
Extremely impressive. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on with the program, but before we do that, seeing as Gordon has put the marmalade, his precious marmalade recipe in my hands, you will all get a pledge form to become Paul Harris Society members and then I will release the recipe. And how does that sound? Okay, thank you very, very much, Gordon. I'm going to move on with the program and I'm going to introduce Mary Rafferty to you from the Rotary Club of Dublin, who is going to present 5 facts on her club and on her country. So Mary has over 20 years experience in training and development, and she has spent 12 years as Director of Leadership and Management Training and Consulting in the Institute of Public Administration, which is Ireland's leading provider to the Irish public sector. She's been a Rotarian for the past 12 years, and she supports youth activities and has facilitated the startup of several Interact clubs. She's also a member of the newly created Peace Building Committee in the Rotary Club of Dublin, which I'm very proud to say I had a hand in as well, Mary. Over to you, Mary. I'm not going to steal any more of your thunder.
Oh.
Mary, are you there?
You need to unmute, Mary. You need to unmute.
Yeah. Mary, can you hear us? Okay, we seem to have some challenges with Mary. Is anybody else from Mary's club able to do this presentation? Tony?
I think Mary will manage. I will send her a text. She's
No,
not
no,
with us.
it's okay. I'm with you now. Apologies. Apologies.
Wonderful.
I had great difficulty getting in to begin with. I'm just trying to find a way to share the screen. So bear with me for 1 second while I do that. Now, if I do share screen. Okay, we're getting there. Are we there?
We can see you are starting to share something. Wonderful.
Okay. Right. Okay, so thank you, Grace, and apologies for the little technological glitches. So I'm delighted to be here. And I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about Ireland. And what you can see here is a map of Ireland with all the coloured administrative counties. But what I wanted to draw your attention to was in the top northeast corner, you see something in grey, and that's to indicate that on the island of Ireland, we have both Ireland and we also have Northern Ireland. So really on the island.
Mary,
Yes?
sorry to interrupt you, but can you click on your slide that you're speaking about? Because we can only see the first slide so far. So the map, that we can't see it.
So perhaps go into presentation mode if you know how to do that. At the bottom of your screen, right-hand side, there's just where it says the percentage of what your screen is, there's a little icon there. If you click on that, it'll put you in presentation mode and you will then be able to click through your slides. Are you with us, Mary?
I'm not seeing that.
Okay, do you just want to click on the slide you're talking about then? Just move to your next slide.
I have actually done that, but obviously.
Would you like me to share it from my side?
Yes, that would be easier, Grace. Thank you. Because obviously something is not working here. Is that working now?
No.
No, all right. I'm going to stop sharing, okay?
Yeah, stop sharing. Let me just get the presentation on my side.
Okay, that's it. Okay, so now you can see the map and you can see the little, the gray area in the northeast, which is the Northern Ireland. So if you go on to the next one, Grace. All right, so as I mentioned on the island, there are two countries, Ireland and Northern Ireland. The total population is about 7 million. We are the youngest population in Europe, and I'll explain why in a minute. For a little bit of history, in 1922, the Irish Free State was created, and then in 1949, the Republic of Ireland was established, and we are a parliamentary democracy. A very important date in the history of Ireland was within the 1840s, where our staple crop, the potato, failed due to a disease, a blight came upon the potato, and that led to what we call the Great Famine. And during that time, about 2 million people either died or emigrated to the United States and to mostly to England as well. So that I put the statement there, emigration and then immigration. So for many, many years, Ireland sent a lot of their population away. We're considered to have multiple numbers of our own population living around the world. But really from around the years 2000 onwards, we've had immigration, which is still a bit of a surprise to us, that instead of people emigrating, people are now immigrating into Ireland. Many people from Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Poland, also people from Africa have come to live in Ireland, and as a result they've settled here, and now they are settling down and having families, and of course that new blood is bringing our population, the age of the population, down quite a bit, which is why we're having this phenomenon of being the youngest population in Europe. Our economy was very strong. Of course, it was hit like many others by the 2008 world economy, but thankfully we're back strong again, and we have a strong pharmaceutical and technological base to our industries. There's a quick flick, just you can move on, Grace. That was just to show you the Emerald Isle and the reason why it's often called 40 shades of green, for all the lovely green landscape we have. Keep moving there, Grace. Two things I did want to bring to your attention are the two World Heritage Sites that we have in Ireland. One of them is Newgrange, which is a megalithic tomb, which is more than 5,000 years old. That's kind of elliptical entity. And then the Skellig Michael, which is the pointed island type. That was a monastic settlement. It's more than 1,200 years old, and people love to go and visit there, but the numbers are very restricted. All right, moving on. So Ireland is famous also for its music and dance, and we have had all sorts of music, trad music, mod music, all the rest of it, but also the dance, river dance, became a worldwide phenomenon. Established in 1994, it's traveled the world. Some of you may have actually seen some of the troops dancing, because there are multiple troops, but it's a wonderful scene if you ever get a chance to go and see it. Okay. And of course, no comment on Ireland would be probably complete without mentioning Guinness. Started in Dublin in 1759. It's now brewed in 50 countries around the world and sold in 120 countries. And I'm sure some of you have had a chance to sample that. Okay, so moving on then to the Rotary Club of Dublin. Established in 1911, the first club outside the United States. We've been around for a long time, and this year we're celebrating in February 111 years old. Over the past 15 years, we've become quite international. We've had presidents from Italy, the Philippines, and our current president, Alexandra, is from Germany. We meet every Monday, weekly at lunchtime, and we have speakers and of course business meetings, and more or less I'm sure the same as many of the clubs. We do have strong international networks. We have an award that we're part of, the Leonardo da Vinci Award, which I'll talk about in a minute. We've just recently established an alliance with the Rotary Club of Bonn and Tours and ourselves. And then over the last number of years, we've also been part of a wider EU network. We're very strong on fellowship groups within the club. We've got a book club, a hill walking club, a history club, a theatre club. So there's lots of good interest groups. but of course, the important thing are the projects that we're involved in. So our local projects tend to turn over over the years, where we don't usually stick with any one, but we, depending on what the current needs are, we will move on to that. One that we have been involved with for a long number of years is St. Vincent de Paul. It's a charity which takes care of the needy and supports people who are needing support through funds and through food. One of the ones we've got involved with recently is the Dolly Parton Library. I'm not sure whether any of you know about that, but Dolly Parton, of course, is the great American singer, and she has lent her support to establishing a system whereby very young children are given books on a regular basis, and we've been involved with that in a library in Dublin. You can see the picture there of people cooking, and they're cooking because they're cooking meals for an elderly resource centre that we're involved with that is quite near where our club is. We have an Interact Club. We've also been involved with the Alice Leahy Trust for Homeless People. That's one that we've been involved with again for quite a long time. And as Gordon mentioned, there's the famous Santa visits to hospitals. I think a lot of clubs are involved with that. You can now move on. I don't know again if many people here have heard of something called a Remembrance Tree. We've had a Remembrance Tree at Christmas time in a nearby shopping centre for quite a number of years, and it has proved really a great fundraiser. People donate a certain amount of money. It could be €5, something around that amount. And what they do is they fill out a little card, which is in memory of somebody who may be very ill or somebody who has recently died. And it's amazing how it seems to speak to people. And then later we gather all those little mementos together, and we have an ecumenical service for them. And then, of course, we also deliver Christmas trees as well. You can move on then. Some of our international projects that we have been involved in and are currently involved in, one is Bikes for Africa. And that is a scheme whereby we collect bikes that are of no longer any use to people, and if they need some maintenance to make sure they're in good condition, we've got a connection with a local prison, and the prisoners of course feel as if they're doing some good by helping to maintain the bikes, and then they're shipped to various countries in Africa, the Gambia being one that we've been involved with. We've also been supporting a school in Zambia over the last 10 years, and I'll speak more about that in the next slide. And more recently, we've been involved with the Rotary Club of Amsterdam, who really made a big push on the eradication of plastics. And one of their signature projects is End Plastic Soup in the oceans, where there are literally, if you could call them, mountains of plastics or lakes of plastics in the ocean. And we've also supported Doctors Without Borders. They're just some of the ones we've been involved with over time. So then this is the school we have been supporting in the Kabwe district, well, as a city in Zambia. And that's been ongoing for the last 10 years. We've helped to build the school in terms of supporting through funding. And that school is really more than a school, as you can see there. It's a drop-in center, it's a playground, it's a refuge for children who may be street children or vulnerable in one way or another. And we've contributed €100,000 over the last 10 years to the building and the maintenance of that school. And then the last one that I wanted to, the second last one is the Leonardo da Vinci Award that I mentioned earlier. We are in cahoots with 11 European Rotary clubs who have been funding an award for a young person under the ages of 35 who excels or has the potential to excel in the areas of the arts or sciences. And those, of course, are the disciplines associated with Leonardo da Vinci. And this year, we haven't met now for the last 2 years because of COVID, but this year we're getting back together again and we're meeting in Copenhagen in May. That's will be happening. And the last one, I think it is. No, obviously not. The duck race is the next one we are talking about. And that, again, is just one of these things that I thought might tickle your fancy, that we've had this annual duck race over a number of years, and it's a great family outing and a fundraiser as well. And what happens that you buy a duck or several ducks, just like you might put your, buy a horse or put money on a horse in order to win a race. So instead of the horses racing, the ducks are racing. They're thrown into the river upstream and they make their way through various obstacles down to a particular finishing line. And we've multiple races, so you have chances of your duck doing well in a couple of races. And there you can see some people wading into the river to collect those ducks. So it's amazing. It's a simple idea, but it's been a good fundraiser for us. And now, Grace, yes, the last thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned it already, Grace, is that we've, thanks to you, and we're very appreciative of that, we've been beginning to create a peace building ethos within the club. And our objectives this year, apart from having set up a committee, is that we will have a number of speakers in the area of peace building. And we're also asking our members to complete the Peace Academy program. So that's it. That's a little flavour of Ireland and also the Rotary Club of Dublin.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mary. The Rotary Club of Dublin is hectically busy. These are such impactful projects, not only locally and internationally. And I'm particularly interested in the duck race. Really interesting. I really think that's something we need to steal from you. Simple, but great idea. If there are any questions for Mary, please drop them in the chat box. Or is somebody eager to speak up? Because we know there's always somebody with a hand up, hand raised. So if you do have a question for Mary, please raise your hand or drop in the chat box, and Mary would be happy to respond. Wow, Mary, I think people are really stunned. Honestly. But otherwise, if there aren't any questions just yet, you can always drop them in the chat box later and we can send a response via email. So that should be the way to go, since at the moment there aren't any questions just yet. They must be so good. So Grace, should we carry on with our last speaker for the meeting?
Yes, thank you very much, Thembi. I'd like to introduce to you President Wilbur van Niekerk, who is the president of the Rotary Club of Table Bay, and he's been a Rotarian since 2006. Professionally, he has been a CCMA commissioner since 2012, arbitrating and resolving labour market disputes. Wilbur holds a master's degree in labour law from UCT, and during 2019 conducted a pre-proposal research towards embarking on a PhD degree in dispute resolution. So I think, Wilbur, you are an excellent candidate for our peace and conflict resolution things that we are trying to do in Africa, and not just in Africa, but in Rotary International. And I'm going to hand over to you, Wilbur, to present your club and projects that you are involved with.
Thank you very much, Grace. And to those I haven't greeted this evening, hello everybody. It's a great privilege for us to be here. I want to introduce the members of the club who are on the call: Janine Atkins, Mandy Allen, Doug and Bridget Wares. Cameras off, but they are very much present. Doug's just recovering from some surgery, so I think, yeah, that's why the camera's off, I guess. Otherwise it would be on. but they are there. So at some point, if I need help, I might call upon my club members to just jump in if they need to give you some information, if you've got questions. But other than that, I think I'm going to get going. Preparing for this, I was reminded of Mark Twain's statement, in that he said he apologized to a friend, and what had happened was, he said, "I'm sorry for writing you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one." And very much that's how it feels to be doing this presentation and putting together what do you leave in, what do you put in, what do you leave out, and all of that. Can I just have confirmation that the screen is shared and that it says Rotary Club of Table Bay? I see nods. Okay, perfect. That's fantastic. So for a change, I'm not sharing my email. So fact number one on the club is that COVID was harsh and we suffered. But I'm happy to say that we had a very busy December, and we used our networks of hands to get together to do some great service projects. Kirsten Bosch Carols by Candlelight has been one we've been involved with for quite a few years. And this year was the first time we could do a face-to-face in a while. And so you had all these luminous green jackets, 24 per night, guiding 1,700 people to their places for 4 nights in a row. And it was just an amazing experience. And then in the bottom corner, you see Somerset Hospital Pediatric Unit. For a number of years, many years now, we've done a party for the children, the Christmas party. And obviously with COVID, we couldn't. But what we did was we managed to do a handover and a celebration on the steps of the hospital with some of the staff. And you will see the Santa suit on the left of the actual Santa. You can't make it out, but I confess that is me. Yeah, I think it's not something I aspire to in my life, but anyway, the suit fitted, so there we go. In the middle, the pick is Kensington Old Age Home. Again, we couldn't do face-to-face tea party, so we had to put the tea party or the tea in boxes and deliver them to them with much love, all from a distance. And the bottom right-hand corner is New Dawn in Q-Town. Q-Town is a sub-economic township, gang-infested or gang-ridden. And what this organization does is it simply cares for children before school and after school. And where we got involved very lightly at this stage is just with their Christmas, hand over the gifts and wrapping it and presenting and buying for them. And it's just an encouragement, and let's see where we go from there. We've got long-term relationships, just going into our history. On the left, you'll see from the 1950s, the community chest, they were started, and we're no longer involved in it. It's now self-sustainable, and it's impacted thousands and thousands of lives in Cape Town. Peninsula School Feeding Association, we still have a member on the board. They were started in the 1960s, and they feed thousands of children, and the motto being that you can't teach a hungry child. And then Village Tods, that's about 30 years old. It's an educare center, and I'll be talking a bit more about that. Mandy's the champion, and she might come in with a couple of facts here and there. Lots of passion she's got for that particular place. And on the right, you've got the National Sea Rescue Institute. And on our calendar for over 20 years has been probably the highlight of the club's calendar, being the Rotary wine auction, which we've done in collaboration with Newlands Rotary. And it's always an amazing event. We've raised hundreds of thousands of rands per year for them, and either for the purchase of new boats or for infrastructure or whatever the case may be, as they may have need. And then mothers and children are very important in terms of what we do and where we fit in. And just 2 of those projects. Village Tods, the actual building was built by the club, And I'm told that, interestingly enough, it was done so that mothers in the area could actually go and work, and their children could be taken care of. And the mothers actually got involved with some of the building, which was unusual to hear. And today we're still involved with them. We've just landed a 70,000 Rand donation for infrastructure and upgrading. And we've got members of the club on the governing body. So there's very active hands-on presence there. Rainbow of Hope, commonly known as Rainbow House, is a place of safety for children who have been placed there by the state. And there again, we've been involved with some, let's call it capital projects in the sense of building and materials, whether it's drilling for water or whether it's fixing gutters or roofing. And slowly the relationship's been building over the last 7 years, and that's going to continue. This year, one of the things that came to the fore was Janine's in the middle. Yeah, well, in the middle next to Bridget, who's got the blue jacket on. Okay, and she's the person who's driven the wheelchair project, and it's come about in the following way. So there's been a partnership with the Sweetheart Foundation, and what we did with them was, we still do that, is collecting tags and bottle tops. That gets donated to them. It becomes a recycling project for them, and they raise money from that, and they assemble wheelchairs and they donate those, and they've donated about 960 to date. And then this year we managed to have a partnership with the West Coast East E-Club cluster, and what they did was they brought in a container load of wheelchairs, and we got involved in the distribution of some of them. And in the top pick over here, these are children's wheelchairs being handed over to the Tygerberg Hospital, which is a wonderful thing just to be able to do. And the bottom two picks is the before and the after picture of the wheelchair that this particular recipient came in with, and what she eventually got blessed with. And there's a very heartwarming story around this. And Janine, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to go through it if you're okay with it. It chokes us up every time Janine tells the story, but it's a serendipitous story. This particular lady, when she was in her early 20s, was paralyzed during childbirth. And she can stand, but she can't walk, and she's completely dependent. And Janine happened to be in a pharmacy where this lady came in, and she was trying to exchange and buy a wheelchair using a number of other things like bottle tops, etc., to try to do that. And Janine walked up to her and said, look, what are you looking for? And long story short, she got a new wheelchair. And it's amazing the difference it just makes to somebody's life at a practical level. You know, very often in a project, you know, everything's done in a group, but this is a face, a person, and it's very personal for us to know that, you know, this lady's been helped in this particular way. And then, final fact on the club is that we turned 70 in 2025. We were chartered in 1955. We have always been near or at the Cape Town Harbour, and it's wonderful to be at the sea. And we are continuing to look at future legacy projects all the time, and we're hoping to have something lined up, especially for our 70th birthday in a few years' time. And then about Cape Town, and I note Grace had specifically put, I mustn't talk about my country, I must talk about my city. So I caught the hint, and it wouldn't help if I told all sorts of South African things when we've got Johannesburg counterparts on the call, so I get it. And that's what I've done. First thing about Cape Town, a fact I'd like to mention is you can't say enough about Table Mountain, even though everybody knows about it. You know, there it's in the daytime, and it's in the nighttime. And it's an amazing, just beautiful place to be, Cape Town, the sea, the sun, everything else. Yeah, it's just wonderful. And it's rated one of the top places to visit in your lifetime. So for those of us who are not in South Africa, I encourage you, and we'd love to see you in our beautiful city. And then Cape Town is also the historical mother city. Now, our Johannesburg counterparts sometimes make fun of us out of frustration, and they say that it's called the mother city because everything takes 9 months to get done. And that's not far wrong, because I just want to point to the previous slide and say, well, with that kind of beauty, would you want to work past 1 o'clock on a Friday? I don't know. Most of us don't in Cape Town. So whether you're talking about 1652, or you're talking about the Houses of Parliament of South Africa, or you're talking about Nelson Mandela's first freedom speech after he came off Robben Island, or you're talking about the rich cultural heritage and diversity of the Cape Town minstrels and that very colorful carnival that they have, all the sporting prowess of the Newlands Rugby Ground, which is the second oldest in the world. That's all part of the historical mother city, and yeah, which we're very proud of. Something about Cape Town that we need to know, the Western Cape, more broadly, is that we have a unique plant kingdom. There are 6 worldwide, and one of them is unique to our region, fynbos, and you'll only find it here. And you know, they're protected, and our mountains are full of them. And my feeling is this: for those who like hiking, you know, this fynbos just gets into your heart and soul and becomes part of your blood. And it's just an amazing part. So everybody who lives in Cape Town, who loves the mountains or loves the outdoors, you know, there's nothing like the smell of this, and it's a different feel, just in the air. And then there's the Cape Town Cycle Tour, where Rotarians have played a key role in the establishment of this race, which is now many years old, but it's now become the largest timed cycle race in the world. So popular, in fact, that they had to cap the entry list at 35,000. They couldn't keep on letting it grow. And a friend of mine used to be the administrator of the race, and he says it became so competitive to get a number or an entry that at peak time, his inbox would have 1,200 emails a day. And if he didn't clear his whole inbox, he'd have a torrid day the next day. So it's a very popular place, and it's, sorry, not place, race, and it's a source of fundraising for Rotary, and certainly has been for our club over the years. And after all the beauty, and after all the history, and after all the fynbos and all the famous races, we have a very polarized socioeconomic disparity in the same city. And that's a sad fact, but it is a fact nevertheless. And you'll see in the topic, that is common sight to see the homeless on pavements, sleeping in doorways. And you'll have informal settlements, people who are exposed to flood and fire, not the healthiest of living circumstances to begin with, and everything else that goes with that, including diseases and poor health, is there. So you'll find that the poor still are excluded from the economic landscape. It's a sad fact, and that means that the need for Rotary services and projects is absolutely never ending. And it doesn't matter where you look in our beautiful city, you'll find a project. You don't have to try too hard. You just see the need is bigger than what we can provide for. And it sometimes makes me feel inadequate, sometimes makes me feel sad, but I have to stay focused and say I can't help everybody. But it's a starfish principle. You throw one starfish back at a time, and maybe you don't get through the whole pile, but you got some, and they're there in the sea and they're happy. So on that note, from me, thank you very much for listening. Let's make a difference together. And I've left 2 email addresses at the bottom of the slide for those who want to make contact. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Wilbur. If anybody has a question, may you please drop it in the chat box. I just wanted to say that I have a friend of mine, because you say that you can never say enough about Table Mountain, right? I have a friend who moved from Cape Town to Joburg saying that she's over the mountain. So it sounds like you're not over.
Oh, really? No, never.
Yeah. You know, but also on a serious note, though, with the wheelchair project that you've mentioned, it's so true that with most of the project that we do, or whenever we try to impact people's lives, we always have this general outlook without a particular face in mind, without an individual in mind. And whenever we see this individual impact in people's lives, it really changes a person's perspective. So thank you for sharing that. I think we have a question, or rather it's a comment from Peter from England, who's saying, I have some wheelchair info for Wilbur and Janine. So I'm sure we can get in touch with Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just say that, are you aware of the wheelchair project run by the Northcliffe Club in District 9400? Because we're the source of the 35,000 wheelchairs that we've shipped out to them for moving through Southern Africa. They are currently looking for partners in this project. So if you need details, I can send them, or you can contact the Rotary Club of Northcliffe 9400, and there's a huge project there on wheelchairs that we're involved with.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. And if anybody else has a question or also would like to share something, please do drop it in the chat box and drop your contact details. And I'm pretty sure we'll be able to contact you on that contact detail. So, okay, for now, we will now hand over to our President-elect, Nick Wood, who will give a toast to our clubs and the President nominee of Rotary International, Gordon McInally. This will be followed by a thank you from our President of the Rotary Club of Johannesburg, Dr. Angela Long, before going out into our networking sessions. So Nick, all yours.
Thank you very much, Tembi. Yeah, what can I say? Those are three brilliant presentations, all very inspiring. Makes me want to get on the road and start traveling again. I want to get to Scotland. I want to get to Ireland. Want to go back to Cape Town. You never visit Cape Town frequently enough. But thank you for sharing all three of the speakers, to Gordon, if I may call you Gordon, Mary, Wilbur. Thank you for sharing that information about your clubs, about the projects that you're involved in, about the facts and figures about your country or your town. It's always interesting. There's always something new that we learn about all these locations. So it's wonderful. You know, I was just looking at our website and seeing that there's, I think, roughly 46,000 Rotary clubs around the world now. Wouldn't it be great to know more about all of them? But at least we do it one by one, just as Wilbur was saying with the starfish. We know more about these three clubs. It's wonderful to know more about them. And most importantly, obviously from Gordon, that we know more about the man who is our future president of Rotary International, Gordon McInally, that there is a human side and obviously multi-talented and very inspiring to know what makes up a leader of that caliber. So thank you for sharing all those facts about yourself. And it's almost like undressing. I hope you didn't feel it was getting too personal, sharing all these facts and figures with us. I can't wait to try that marmalade recipe, by the way. Yeah, so thanks to everybody. As it says on the Rotary website, the Rotary International is made up of neighbors, friends, leaders, problem solvers, and we're all united to create lasting change across the globe. And I think that was really demonstrated by today's presentation. So without further ado, I know we're a little bit over time and I'm getting very thirsty, but let me propose a toast to all three clubs that are presented today and to our future president of Rotary International. So
cheers,
to everyone. Cheers.
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 Full.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to jump right in and do my word of thanks here. So thank you to all the members of the multiple Rotary clubs that we've got online with us. And a special thanks goes out to our Rotary International President nominee, Gordon McInally, for taking time out of a busy schedule to join us tonight to tell us more about yourself and your club and your country. I have a Scottish heritage, and so I loved hearing about Scotland, and the accent always brings fond memories of my grandparents. Thank you to Rotarian Mary Rafferty for giving us a look into the life in Ireland and the work that your club is involved in. And thank you, President Wilbur Fanikak, for bringing